That's why the book is called That Will Never Work. And of course they were right. It was a ridiculous idea. It didn't work, but it was a starting point. So you get into it, and all of a sudden you're intrigued by how am I going to figure out how to take this weird category and bring it online.
I think I read this story. Basically, you and Reed are commuting from here over the mountains.
Yeah.
And because you're working in another company and you're kind of talking about, you're bringing ideas weekly, daily, and then you kind of have this moment where you kind of put together this idea with the DVDs, which there were, at the time, there's like hundreds of thousands of DVD players. I mean, it's a small, tiny market. And you kind of realize that you can put these in the mail.
Yep.
And they're not going to get ruined or something. How did that happen?
So you're right. That's the setup for the story, is that Reed and I were both, his company had bought my previous startup. So we had all gone to earn out at that company. Most of our company that he had bought, had been consigned to the basement as a business unit to run that product. And I ended up getting sucked into being VP of corporate marketing. So going from this really cerebral 12-person company and boom, big multinational company. But anyway, the big upside besides the economic stuff of selling the company was that I was going to work directly for Reed, and he and I both lived here in Santa Cruz and began commuting to work together. And then that went on about 6 months, and then an even bigger company bought our company. And so maybe the lucky part of the story is both Reed and I were being let go. You have some euphemism, made redundant or whatever the word for it. And Reed was going to go back to school, get a higher degree education, change the world. I'm going, this is great, I'll start my next company. But because we were commuting all the time, we're kind of brainstorming it, and Reed wanted to keep his hand in the entrepreneurial world, and he says, well, we agreed, we'd start a company that he would be the angel investor, I'd start and run it, and we needed the idea. And the process we used was basically every morning Reed would swing by my house, about 3 or 4 miles that way, and I'd get in the car, and by the time we'd even left the driveway, I'd be all set. And I go, okay, Reed, I got one for you. Personalized shampoo. People are gonna cut off a lock of their hair, and they're gonna mail it to us, and we're gonna have a team of ace hair scientists who are gonna formulate a custom blend just for you, and they're gonna subscribe to it.
Are you in marketing?
Yes, my background's all in marketing. And then Reed would just be sitting there staring out the window like he hadn't heard me. And I'd be sitting patiently back, because I knew that what was going on back there, the spinning wheels and the costs and opportunities and risks and benefits and all that stuff. And then eventually, it might take 5 minutes, he'd turn and go, that's never going to work. And here's why. And he'd lay into me with all the logic of why it was a crappy idea. And I'd come right back and we'd argue for
the rest of the ride.
And maybe all the way home.
Yeah.
And I really did pitch him personalized shampoo, and I did pitch him custom dog food, and I did pitch him vitamins, and I did pitch him sporting goods. I pitched probably 50, 60, 70 ideas, and one of them that I pitched was video rental by mail. This was, though, in 1997. So video rental back then was VHS cassettes. So we probably had gotten just barely over the top of 17 before that one got rejected straight out.
Because just the costs around sending VHS tapes and just still way too much.
And one of my previous startups was a big mail order company called Mac Warehouse. And one of the things we pioneered at Mac Warehouse was next day delivery, being able to order it and have it delivered next day. But we were selling computer supplies with huge margins and high ASPs. But I knew tons about using express services to do that type of thing. So that was the genesis of the pitch. And the research goes, no, these are too heavy and too expensive and too fragile to have any margin in video rental and VHS cassette. So that got shot down. And the breakthrough, if there was one, was maybe a month and a half later, and I began to pitch something, and Reed cut me off and said he had just read about this new tech called a DVD, little disc. And he was going, we should talk about the video rental by mail idea. and began brainstorming that and kind of realized, well, maybe rather than having to use DHL or FedEx, maybe we can mail this sucker. And then turned the car around mid-commute, halfway over the hill, and drove back down to Santa Cruz. We could have done this, filmed this in front of the Santa Cruz post office as a historical moment, but went downtown, tried to buy a DVD. And of course, it was still in test market, and I don't know why they hadn't picked Santa Cruz as a test market, so there wasn't one available. So we bought a used music CD, and then went 2 doors down to a little Santa Cruz pitch store called Paper Vision, bought a little envelope, gift card, greeting card envelope, put the CD, mailed it to Reed's house, got to his house in less than a day, intact. Next morning, picked me up, there it was, made it to his house for the price of a postage stamp. And I think that's the moment we kind of said, wow, this changes things and maybe this is the one to do. So long story to how that one became the one we picked. And you know, one of the characteristics of being an entrepreneur is having the capacity to make a decision based on incomplete or inconclusive or contradictory data. And you dig in a little bit trying to understand video rental by mail, what's involved, and pretty soon you realize there's just no amount of analysis is going to tell you whether this is going to work or not. And the only way we're really going to figure out whether this will work or not is by doing it. And so Reed wrote a check. I hired a bunch of people. We rented an old bank office up in Scotts Valley, California, just a little bit north of here, and spent about 6 months putting together the type of website you could probably build in an hour.
You knew that Blockbuster was this, everybody knew Blockbuster in the 90s. It's like one of the most iconic brands of the 90s, I feel like. And we all had that experience, the joy of Blockbuster and also the intense frustration of all sorts of things, not just the late fees, but even, I remember as a kid going in and just being devastated that they didn't have the new movie. You know, they would have these walls, right, of like all the new movies. And then if you didn't get there in time on Friday, you were just out of luck. And then you had to pick something you'd already watched or whatever.
Right.
You had to wait in line 20 minutes to get some movie you'd already seen. Did you actively think about, hey, when you talked about finding a big market, did you actually say, oh, well, I know Blockbuster has so much revenue. I also know that people are frustrated by this sort of video rental experience that they're having today? Or did you not connect all of those dots in the beginning?
No, obviously you connect all those dots. And so you're right. What excites you is an $8 billion category dominated by one player. I think they had 60% of the market, 70% of the market. I mean, they were $6 billion. So I guess that's 75% of the market.